Hey y'all, I promised you a video on dominant 7 chords today, and so we're going to try to work through that. Alright, so to this point we have played major and minor chords, which are all 3-note chords. The dominant 7, and every chord we'll talk about from this point on, is just adding one more note to make a 4-note chord. Of course, we have 4 strings on the mandolin. That should work out pretty well. However, we don't always want the highest note to ring out, especially when we're singing or if we're playing rhythm with a band. So we're going to learn these chords, how to reduce a 4-note chord to a 3-note chord. That'll be far more useful for you. When you're playing a chord melody, you may want to play the full 4 notes. So we'll get into that. I'll show you how to do both. But when I'm playing, I generally use 3-note dominant 7 chords. The dominant 7 is just like a major chord, 1, 3, 5. So in the key of C, that's C, E, G. But then you add the 7th note. The 7th note of the C scale is, of course, B, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Sorry, I started with A. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, but we're going to flatten it. Hope I didn't confuse you there. I started with the alphabet instead of the first note of the scale. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But we're going to play that B flat. Why do we do this? Well, in Western music, that's the way our ears trained. We can actually identify the key of a song much easier by the dominant 7 chord than we can by usually the tonic chord, or the chord that actually matches the key. When we hear the B7, our ear tells us to go to C. Okay, so we're going to play 4 different shapes of C, E, G, B flat. Put each note on top in a different position. Get used to that, and then we'll do what's really more useful, which is to reduce that to a 3-note chord, just leaving off one of those notes, and I'll show you how to do that. This is actually very simple, so I'm going to try to keep it simple and not complicate it. So, if we're playing a C major chord with a C on top, we're in this position right here, C, E, G, right? So we're now going to play a C7. I probably got off one. Let me see. Of course, I don't really play the 3-note chords. I'll just bar across like this. And it's going to be, there we go. So that's C, G, B flat, E. If that, yep, that's E, F, G, that's right. Let's try that again. C, G, B flat, E. Okay, that's the C with the C7 with the C on the top. All right, now let's do the C7 with the E on the top. I guess I'll stay on this string so I can play all 4 notes. C7 with the 3rd or the E on the top is going to be like this. So it's going to be E, B flat, C, G. And see, this is a really good example of why you're rarely going to want to play the chord like this. You're going to want to, if you want to voice it with the E note on top, you don't want it up here in this range 99% of the time. So when we get into 3-note chords, I'll show you how to put your E here, back on the 2nd string, 7th fret, and it's going to sound much better to the ear. But this is, academic right now. I'm showing you. All right. Now, let's see, we got to get the G on top, which is going to be, I think, here. Much nicer chord. G, C, E, B flat. and then with the B flat on top. So here's our B flat. We're going to play it like this and just come across. That's another good alternative, good option if you want to do a 4-note C7 chord. Play it with the B flat on top. Okay, so let's run through those one more time. All right, get up close so you can see. Great chords, but there's, like I said, they're a little higher pitched, several of them higher pitched than the human voice, higher pitched than you might want to play. So let's find the 3-note chords, which will make these easier on the fingers and easier to play along with other instruments or play along with a singer. So we'll start with a C. This time we're just going to do this. All right, I've got my ring finger on the C. Pointer finger on the E, and middle finger on the B flat. Most times, especially if I'm singing, because I have a baritone voice, I'm going to play my C's using this as the C, the top note. And so, now what is that? Well, that's that same one with the G on top. Just remove the G note. This time we're taking the 5th out. So we go, or it's a stronger sounding chord, it's a better sounding chord to my ear. Drop, just leave the G out. It's that simple. All right, so the next one would be, as I said, the C with the E on top, the 3rd note of the chord on top. Now, you gotta admit, that sounds better than this. Eek. So, but it's the exact same chord. We're going to play the, we're just dropping one note. I'm going to play the 3rd, the E. I'm going to play the, I guess it's the B flat. Let me double check. Yeah, B flat. And the C on the bass string. Now, if I was playing a C7 in a bluegrass song and I wanted to go with a nice, I'm playing like chop chords. And I wanted to play a C7, this is the one I would pick because I've got my C as the bass note in this case. Again, that's E, B flat, C. Again, we drop the 5. Well, the next one, let's play the 5. And I'll play it right here. So I've got my 5 note, that's the G. Again, I've got the B flat, same B flat we were playing a second ago, but I've got an E down here. You can, of course, play it here, or the same chord up here, which really does sound better than, in my opinion. But so again, let's get that. That's G, B flat, E. And I guess finally we need to get the flat 7. If we played our G here, we just count up G, A, B flat, and it's very simple. It's, let's show you. That's B flat, E, G. So in that chord, we've just left out the C. Well, remember, you can bar across and get that C if you want, or play the 3 note. Work through those. If you have any questions, email me. I do have a document I can send you that has some diagrams of these chords. It's not one I put together. It's available for free. I'll just send you the link. In fact, if you want the link, you know what, I don't have the link in front of me, but I can send you that document so you can see these illustrations. But it's really important, as I said last week, not to learn your chords necessarily as shapes, but learn the notes of the chord, as I just went through. So we've got C, E, B flat. We've got E, G, Let's see, where am I here? Lost my count again. Oh, we've got E, E, G, E, B flat, C. See if I can get it right. E, B flat, C. We've got G, B, E. Yeah, G, B flat, E. And we've got B flat, E, G. Why is that important? Because from every chord from now on, we're just going to be moving one of those notes. If I want to go from, C7 to C6, I'm just going to lift that B flat and make it an A. If I wanted to go to a 9, I could actually just drop this. Drop my pinky finger on the D. That's not the position I would play the 9 out of, but in a chord melody it may be very useful. If I want to go from, let's play the C7 here. Now I want to play C minor 7. I'm just going to move the E back to E flat. Totally different sounding chord, right? And etc. For a C major 7, I'm just going to move the B flat up to a B natural. So again, if we're here, I go from B dominant 7 to B major 7. Popular jazz chord, you're not going to find it much in blues or country or bluegrass or anything like that. For one thing, it's kind of hard to sing with a major 7 chord, but you'll find it, if you play jazz, you're going to play major 7s probably more than just about anything else except 9s. And yeah, major 7s, dominant 7s, and 9s are going to be your bread, and minor 7s are going to be your bread and butter. So get those 4 shapes down for the 4-note chord, and 4 shapes, I'm using the word shapes again, for the 3-note dominant 7 chord. But name each note as you play them individually. Get in your mind so you know. Like I was saying, if I was going to be playing this more in a bluegrass setting and I wanted to have my bass note being on the C, or in Western swing, say I'm walking that, I'm going to go from, let's see. I want to know where my bass note is every time, so I can go, should practice that before I try to do it live. But anyway, I want to know, okay, so, yeah. Yeah, those would be the chords I would play if I was trying to walk a bass line of. And I'm not going to know where those notes are if I haven't named the notes of the chords. But it's so always important to know what the top note is, but it's also important to know the other notes. So you know if you're going to do a minor chord, you're going to flat the 3rd. If you're going to do a sharp 5 or a flat 5, you know where your 5 is. If you're going to do a major 7, you raise the 7. If you do a 6, you lower the 7 by 1 fret. That's all there is to it. So get your dominant 7 chords down. And like I said, if you do need a diagram of this, just email me. Judson@judsoncarroll.com. That's my professional email address. That's the contact, Judson@judsoncarroll.com. Or southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com. I mean, my main profession is writing about and teaching about herbal medicine. This is a sideline. So get in touch with me either way, or leave a comment on the video on YouTube, and I can put that link, assuming it's still available online. They did put it out for free. It says it's free to share. No, I mean, it's copywritten, but free to share, and I should be able to send you the link for it. If for any reason they have changed it, I will just hand write out these chords. No big deal, just the way Ted Green used to do in his chord encyclopedia. Scan it and I'll email it to you, no problem. Or put it somewhere else so you can find it if you need a URL. Anyway, y'all, Get those chords down, super easy. Now that we have the majors, the minors, and the dominant sevens, you can begin to play interesting rhythm. You can begin to do chord melody. The next thing we'll work on is the minor seven, and then the minor seven flat five, and how that's related to the diminished. And I'll show you probably how to do chord scales. That'll really help you learn the fretboard probably better than anything else that I can recommend. And then you'll just be ready to just jam on anything. And then, of course, there are a lot of songs like Sweet Georgia Brown you might run into in bluegrass that uses the circle of fifths. I'll have to explain that, but essentially it's all dominant seven chords, 4 steps apart. Yeah, we'll get into that another day. And then you go back to the tonic. There are many songs that are based on the circle of fifths where you're predominantly playing, almost entirely, exclusively playing dominant seven chords. Alabama Jubilee would be another one. Very common. You're going to encounter that one in bluegrass circles. If you don't know your sevens in all these voicings, you can have a very hard time playing those tunes, because ideally when you play them, you shouldn't have to move your fingers very much. You should just kind of like, maybe you're going from like 7, 5, 3, but you should be able to play two dominant seven chords in each of these positions as you're going down to make it follow the rhythm and flow with that song. And I'm sure you can find a tab out there of Sweet Georgia Brown or Alabama Jubilee. Oh, there's so many that are based on the cycle of fifths. A lot of early jazz songs like 5'2", Eyes of Blue. Oh, there are tons. There's just tons. Yeah. Anyway, I won't try to name them all because they're just like a dozen come to mind at once. If you want to look for like a mandolin tab on that and see how, like, Bill Monroe or Jethro Burns or Red or any of those guys played those songs, you can see how they chose their chord voicings. And you'll see that they probably had like the tonic note on top on one chord, and then maybe they went to the third or the flat seven on the next one as they're working their way down, so that they can economize the movement of their hand, but also so it's following that step down, step down, step down pattern rather than being all up and down the neck, which just doesn't sound good at all. It doesn't fit the song. It's a challenge to hit those. If you got to move around a lot, it's a challenge to hit those notes cleanly and accurately and in time. It's all about the rhythm on a song like Sweet Georgia Brown. Doc Watson did a fantastic version of it. He did it with bluegrass bands. He did it solo. Be sure to look that up. I know Jethro Burns did several of these. I think just about everybody has, so at one point or another. And just listen to the way those chords move. Then you'll understand why you have to have those chord voicings. You can't just play the chord with the tonic note on top or the seventh on top. You need to know where the 3 and the 5 is. And using 3-note chords, it's from memory, is that right? I don't know. Where to start? E7? Close, if not perfect. That should be a G7 there, but then to G, yeah, that's where I was off. So I think I missed one chord in there, but yeah, you're looking for that kind of movement, and especially with 3-note chords, it's really pretty simple. So don't freak out about it. Again, this is all really easy. A dominant 7 chord is just 1, 3, 5, flat 7. No matter how you play it on the neck. You could come up with more difficult chords, but I've shown you the 4 easiest to me and the 4 I use all the time. So anyway, y'all, have a good one, and I'll talk to you next week. And I guess we'll do minor 7s next. That would probably make sense. We'll do minor 7s. You may think, I don't use minor 7 chords. I'm a bluegrass player. Really doesn't matter, because it's going to show you how to do chord scales. And I'll teach you the relationship of those notes, and it'll really help with arpeggios as well. Yeah, then we'll do the minor 7 flat 5 and its relationship to the diminished, and then we'll do sixes and nines, and then you can play Western Swing along with Bob Wills and Tiny Moore and have a blast. As far as I'm concerned, Western Swing is the greatest music ever recorded. And if you haven't listened to Tiny Moore, he was one of the best mandolin players of all time. And of course, Johnny Gimbel, who came after him, just mind blowing. His work with Bob Wills, his work by himself, solo, his work with Asleep at the Wheel, Willie Nelson, really should be required listening for any mandolin player, and Jethro Burns could just play anything. I mean, there's some great videos out there with Jethro Burns playing with Tiny Moore and Johnny Gimbel and Dave Grisman, and man, they just tear it up. Or if you can see the old reruns of Hee Haw, Jethro Burns was also often playing with Johnny Gimbel. Gimbel would play the fiddle, and Roy Clark would be on guitar, Chet Atkins would be on guitar, Boots Randolph would be on the saxophone, and Floyd Kramer on the piano. They called it the $1 Million Band. Oh my gosh. I mean, there was a DJ used to be on WSM, Eddie Stubbs. I believe it was Eddie Stubbs. I was trying to remember if it was him or a different one. He would always say when he heard like one of those like classic recordings, like a Patsy Cline album, he would say, you know, that song was cut live in studio, and that's when Gods walked among men. And when you watch the $1 Million Band on Hee Haw, or you pull up one of those old episodes of Austin City Limits with Jethro Burns and Tiny Moore and all those guys, you're going to be like, wow, yeah, that's pretty darn close to when Gods walked among men. I mean, there are very, very few mandolin players that could even touch those guys these days. I know I can't. I could name maybe three, and they'd probably be the top three mandolin players in the world right now. I mean, that's how good those guys were. And they were doing it original. They were coming up with this stuff. They were not coming off the tabs and copying what other people did. Dave Apollon is another one. If you want to go back a little further, he had a big band in, I guess, the 20s, and you know, just a phenomenal mandolin player. Big influence on Dave Grisman. Anyway, y'all, have a good one, and I'll talk to you next week.